Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here. We just finished another exciting week of the Contenders series, and I am joined to break it down by the matchmaker for BTC Fight Promotions in Canada, Rob Vevers. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, my man. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Well, Rob, we normally on Tuesday nights text back and forth about the fight, so I thought may as well bring you on and let's just talk about it and hope maybe we can make this a Tuesday night type of thing. And let's get at it. This was an interesting night of fights, Rob. I mean, a lot of competitive fights. Three contracts were given out, and a couple contracts were given to come back for now. Announced that the Contender Series is coming back in November. Overall, Rob, what do you think of this week of the Contender Series?
I think this week was probably one of the best weeks that they've done in the whole Contender Series catalog. Uh, all five fights, all five fights were very good, very competitive. I think the right contracts were awarded for the most part. Anyway, I'm surprised Lawrence got one and the main event didn't. But I have, like I told you earlier in my notes, I have that I could see Lawrence getting one. But anyways, overall, I thought the fights were really exciting and a good night overall.
Yeah, another really good night of. I mean, there hasn't been a week that's really disappointed, but I felt like
No,
this just took the cards and the future shows up to another level. So,
for sure.
let, yeah, let's get at it and start breaking this one down. We started with a lightweight bout in Tucker Lutz and Chase Gibson. And it was really Tucker really just taking advantage of the stand up, letting his hands go. There was a couple times where Gibson was kind of like stunned, like he would be in a video game where you're just kind of standing there. And like Lutz could have like finished him with a head kick or another combination. But I thought for Tucker Lutz, he nearly gave the fight away, Rob. Like Chase Gibson showed his wrestling, was able to get a reverse and took the back with like 30 seconds left in the third round. Tucker Lutz ends up getting the victory, but doesn't end up getting a contract as one of the contracts that's given to come back to the Contender Series. What'd you think of this fight, Rob?
Well, I made a joke of it earlier in the week, or I guess midweek last week on Twitter, that Mr. Gibson's record, if you take a quick glance at it, I think four of his 8 or 9 wins were against guys with 0 wins of their own. And the one guy I think was like 0-19. I'm like, does that guy not have any friends to tell him, hey, maybe stop, this isn't for you? Um, I guess not, but nonetheless. So I thought, like, there's guys far more deserving, I felt, than Gibson to deserve that spot. But that first round, I was super impressed with Gibson's striking. I felt that he won that round. Um, he looked really, really sharp in the first round, and I don't know if it was the weight cut and the short notice and all that stuff that sort of wore him down. And then Lutz just sort of, took the beating in the first and then turned things around second and going forward. And then we look back at our text between you and I that I thought Gibson was going to steal it right at the end there. But decent fight. Lutz won the fight, and I don't think that he should have got a contract from it. And Romero last week, as I said to you, is sort of like that's my barometer now of if that performance from him last week didn't garner a contract, certainly Lutz's performance was not the same caliber.
Well, I mean, it's interesting as well. He didn't get a contract, but he got like an invite to come back and win a contract in a couple months' time. You'd
Sure.
have to think, hopefully, like Anthony Romero gets the same type of call coming back to him.
Well, again, if he didn't get one for his performance last week, I gotta believe the door's open for him to go back later in the fall. And why wouldn't these guys go back for it? They're getting paid like 3-4 times more than what they'd make on the regional circuit anyway. And you get a full camp, you get some rest, you get a full camp, and you make 5-5 on the Contender Series or 6-6, whatever it is. You're not getting paid that on the regional scene, so absolutely fight in front of the 6 best pair of eyes that you need to be in front of, and get paid while you're doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tucker Lutz, but I mean, he does have that confidence knowing that Dana thinks enough of him. Didn't get the contract tonight, but will be back in
He
November.
loves finishes too, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
big thing. If
that
Lutz had finished,
That's the thing with this show to me, Rob. It's like it kind of turns it into a video game instead of the sport where you got to go out there and like button mash, jam away a guy instead of not really, the sport aspect, the scientific, the chess match of it. And I think that's what hindered Romero and gets Lutz this opportunity to come back as he didn't finish, where they want everyone to finish everyone. And that's not how this sport works.
No, and it just panders to the Just Bleed crowd, right? Like
Yeah.
the button mashers, they'll go in there, and if there's a 58-second knockout by somebody throwing it from their ankles and knocks a guy out cold, I'm going to guarantee you that guy's going to get a contract, and then he's going to get smashed in 3, if he's lucky, UFC fights, and then he's going to be forgotten about. But the clip will go viral. They'll be able to sell that for those first couple fights in the UFC and stuff like that, and then they just chuck him out the window like a piece of garbage and move on to the next Contender Series winner.
Well, we've also seen with those guys that get those highlight reel level finish, the expectation is so. Remember Uriah Hall on the Ultimate Fighter? They were calling him after that spin kick the next Anderson Silva, and like settle down there. Like good fighter, but he's a guy that had to go through the tough roads in the UFC to get even to where he is right now. So
what's his record? Like 19-11 or something wild like that?
I believe
not that many fights, because he was like 6-0 or something when he got into the UFC, right?
Yeah. In that ballpark.
He's had like 30 UFC fights, but it's sort of like a 2-to-1 ratio at this point now. But he's still, I mean, when I see him fighting, depending on who's on the other side, it's like,
yeah.
But then he might surprise you.
Yeah, I mean,
rear end.
He's had those injuries as well and was supposed to fight Yoel Romero, but he'll be back in, I think, a couple months.
Yeah, like so I don't think that would have been a good fight for him. I feel like Yoel would have just beat the tar out of him.
Well, that may happen. I mean, who knows? But moving on to a fight where someone ended up having the tar beating out of him. That's our second fight at light heavyweight. William Knight versus Cody Burnage. And for Knight, this is his second time in the Contender Series where he had a come-from-behind victory last season. And it started out pretty bad for him. I mean, Cody Burnage, the double champ for the Lights Out promotion at both middleweight and light heavyweight out in Michigan. And he came out, used his wrestling, took the back, started to go with the ground and pound, and then he had his hands clasped. Herb Dean was telling him to work or he was going to get it like stood up. And then once the fight...
Can you imagine if that had happened?
Oh, that would have been outrageous.
Like full both hooks in, hips down, fully flattened out.
And we have to stand up to action.
Like the most dominant position you could be in aside from front mount.
Yeah, even Cormier was like, what's it going to be like if Herb stands them up right now? Like, you cannot do it. As you said, the most dominant position you can be in.
DC's retirement would have ended promptly, and him and Dean would have been going at
it. Yeah, exactly. DC taking the page right out of Dan Hardy's playbook. But
you heard Dean 0-2 versus UFC commentators.
Ex-fighter commentators.
Yeah.
Once the fight got up against the wall, Knight ended up throwing those big elbows that just absolutely knocked Burnage silly, and then that's the finish. And William Knight gets the win in a first-round impressive performance and ends up getting a contract.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me, him getting the contract, knowing that he was on a development deal from last year. I definitely did not expect Burnage to come out of the gates like that and kind of own him for that brief period of time. He threatened with a submission of something too. I can't remember what it was now, but nonetheless, so Knight was in real trouble and showed some composure and then dropped a couple of those. Was that Josh Barnett against Travis Brown?
Yeah, where Brown just absolutely unloaded
nasty
elbows.
Nasty elbows. And that was all she wrote.
Yeah, and I think Knight made the point of this. He proved he can go 3 rounds where he had a come-from-behind victory the last season, and that he can get the big finish. And look, light heavyweight's been one of the most prestigious divisions in the UFC. Sure. He knew he was going to get a contract, and as you mentioned, he was on a developmental deal, went 2-1 on that run with 2 wins.
Okay, so do you know much about that? I was just going to pull it up, but where did he fought? Probably for CES, I imagine, because he's from.
He went 2-0 in CES and lost in CFFC. To a guy that's actually fighting in the main event next week on the Contenders Series, Tafon Njukwi. So, I mean, you can see that the talent level. I mean, those are promotions that obviously get the eyeballs and are on Fight Pass as well. So, You knew
Yeah.
something was going to come out of that for Knight with getting a win. And, I mean, it was a finish, and a devastating one at that.
Yeah, and those are the big boys. It only takes a couple. Like you could have, if that was Flick and what's his name,
Nate Smith.
Nate Smith. Flick would have had to hit, or vice versa, like 15 of those to knock out the opponent. But the big fellas, when they drop those elbows, it's lights out quickly. What was I going to say with the developmental deal? I'm curious to know what those details are, though. Like, can you just fight on some, show that's doing their events in a nightclub, and some guys like 1 in 15 and whatever? Is that the type of development they're looking for? Or does it have to be on a good show that's on a platform like Fight Pass? The opponent's got to be appropriate, not Eric Lozano, 13 and 16 type of guy, right? Are these part of the deal? Is the UFC paying for the fight? Like, does the UFC pay the promotion to make the fight happen, or what?
Well, I don't know about that, but Knight kind of got into it in his video package, saying that, like, I can fight regionally, and I guess he's from Connecticut, so CEF, they run in that area. Same with CFFC, they run in Connecticut, New Jersey. So I guess that is the big part of it. You can still fight locally, and then you get a lot of the publicity that comes out of it, more so because you're like future UFC fighter coming onto those promotions.
Sure.
I think that's pretty much what it seemed like. I don't know about the pay structure, but
yeah, I would hazard to guess that if there's a contract with the UFC, they're okay, here's a developmental deal. We'll pay you this much, or we'll pay we got to approve the opponent. We'll pay, up to 10 grand for the fight or whatever. Who knows? I'm just be curious to know. Maybe you can get his manager on a show coming up, Tyson, to talk about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and he was fighting guys that weren't cans, all guys with winning records. Jamel Jones was 9-5, and then you had in Njuku, who was 2-0, and then
that proves my point right there, though. If you look at some of the guys on this card, and more specifically the guys that lost, look at who they fought coming in. We kind of talked about it too. Like, we almost like the red corner is like, okay, the UFC wants these guys to win. Let's bring in these guys that are, I'm not going to use the 3-letter word that starts or that rhymes with mum, but bring these guys in with nice records to showcase the red corner guys. Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's always that politics of it where that is involved. But, I mean, obviously for UFC, they were invested in this guy for over a year, and comes out and knocks it out of the park and gets a contract here.
Well, he did exactly what they wanted. Last year, he was green. What was his record coming to the 7-1? So last year on the show, he was like 4-1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that's exactly what they're like. 4-1.
He was undefeated last year because he lost on his developmental deal.
Yeah. So, oh, true. That's right. That's right. So that's even better for him to okay, you're close. Go get a few more fights. We'll bring, come back in a year. We'll see where we're at. And it's up to you to proceed and earn the contract. And even losing the fight is good for him as far as his development goes, because you got to taste the defeat and understand what went wrong and know what losing feels like. And it's MMA, man. It's not that bad. Look at Cerrone.
Yeah. I mean, that guy always finds a way to bounce back and get back in the running after
yeah, and he's making tons of money, and he's got a bunch of losses. No problem.
Exactly. That's where MMA definitely differs than boxing, right? Where you have 2 losses in boxing, your career's over.
Oh, it's like a horse breaking its leg. You just get drug out to pasture, and they blow a hole in you and send you to Elmer's.
Third fight of the night was at bantamweight. This was Ronnie Lawrence versus Jose Johnson. And to your point earlier, Rob, Fight Pass on their Twitter put a big video up of Jose Johnson winning the WXC bantamweight title. So this guy had a ton of experience, fought on Fight Pass for promotions in WXC out of Michigan and LFA. So there was a lot of hype around him. I bought a lot of stock on him. And then Ronnie Lawrence comes in here at 5-1, moved to 6-1 tonight, and just fought the perfect fight for him. Stymied the striker in Jose, and just took the fight to the ground at will. I don't even know if Johnson stuffed the takedown at all.
No,
Like
no
I
way he
don't
did.
no way he did, right? And Lawrence just was able to do what he had to do, and pretty much dominated the fight for the 3 rounds.
Yeah, and I like how he mixed in a couple of those big, heavy leg kicks.
Yes.
When you got a guy at 35 that's 6 feet tall, his legs are like mine and they're this big around. So a couple of those, and before you know it, you got a Sugar Sean O'Malley situation on your hands. So I like that. You take the legs away, it's that much more challenging to stuff a takedown. So even if Johnson wanted to, he was going to be impaired. But yeah, Lawrence was like a honey badger coming right from wire to wire and ripped a high pace, takedowns at will, worked from the bottom or in top position rather. I can't remember if did he go for some submissions?
Yeah, he went for some submissions to, I think, finish the fight as well.
But I was impressed and entertained. I was surprised that he got a contract just because, like you and I talked about earlier, Dana's not a big fan of that sort of game plan, whereas to the just bleed crowd, that's not super appealing.
Well, Dana also has not given contracts to guys that wanted to wrestle to close out fights. Like Brendan Logden, like on the first year of the Contenders, wrestled with 7 seconds left, didn't get a contract because Dana didn't like the wrestling, and now he's with the PFL and what have you. I mean, maybe he'll fight, but he was getting a lot of publicity from them, and now he gets this. Ronnie Lawrence gets a developmental deal out of it, and will be. And Dana said he was special. Like, there's so few guys in MMA that are special. I don't know if that performance was special. I thought it was the perfect fight to implement your game plan to shut down Jose Johnson's, but I would think I would need to see another performance to see if those words are true. Now there's all this hype and publicity going on for Ronnie.
Did Dana maybe get a quick vacation in between the fights, because that game plan could have backfired on him and had him kicked out of the arena before the fights were even done, because like I said, that's not typically something that Dana's interested in seeing. So it was just weird to hear him call him special and this kid's got a lot of confidence. His expectations of himself are high, and mine are higher than that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it was one of the bigger upsets just on the pedigree that Jose Johnson has from all the experience he has on the amateur scene, what he's done.
52 fights total, they said.
Yeah, 50, like tons of amateur experience. He finished as an amateur like 24-12 or 24-13 in that ballpark, and then was 11-5 as a pro coming into tonight. And I mean, there was a lot of buzz. He's a tall, big bantamweight, and you thought, oh well, his last knockout in the LFA looked like a man died. Like, it was such a his elbow. How this guy did like the Ric Flair flop bump to the ground and like kind of did a little bit of convulsing. Yeah, exactly. But he fought such a perfect game to shut down the striker, and really I think it showed that Jose Johnson has to go back to the well, work on some wrestling, work on some takedown defense, because that's going to happen to you once again. And I think
right now the book's out too. So now the next couple opponents that he's going to be up against, they'll shoot for takedown right off the bat.
Yeah, exactly.
And I saw WXC already said, like, can't wait to have you back type of thing. So as soon as they can do cards, he's going to fight.
Oh, for sure. He's definitely going to defend his bantamweight title there for WXC as soon as the state of Michigan gets up and running again with MMA. I know I've seen that it's pro only in the state of Michigan. They won't allow amateur back right now, but pro only. I mean, hey, they're better than some other places, right?
Well, for sure. I saw something today about boxing being approved, allowed, or whatever you want to call it in Quebec.
Oh, really? Well,
Quebec was one of the first provinces right away. They're like, "Oh, shut it down. We're not doing this until the next year."
Yeah, I remember that. So that's interesting.
But today, they came out saying like that you can train. The gyms are open. You're allowed to train, and then within a day or two, they're gonna say boxing's allowed again. So it's got me thinking.
Well, I mean, Quebec was the worst province in all of Canada to be hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. So for them to change their stance on that, I know the preseason of the QMJHL started tonight as well. So sports is starting to come back on the local side.
Well, and I didn't see or read the argument, and this is something I'm really good at when I do these conversations or interviews, is I will take this thing. We're driving down Main Street talking about the Contender series, and I'll take a hard left or right down to something completely different. So I apologize for that. But
No problem.
what's his name? The coach, H2O MMA in Montreal, Richard something or other. Richard Ho, maybe? Anyways, he was on a radio show or something discussing why MMA and boxing and combat sports like jiu-jitsu and judo and stuff, they're safer than the team sports because it's 1v1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you test the two individuals and the ref, of course. That's it. You have football teams with 52 guys on each team.
Plus all the staff.
But it doesn't make, I don't know. I'll never understand it. And I'm sure it's because we're not a big four. But nonetheless, we might be crossing over to Quebec before the end of the year.
Beavers for mayor. Let's just start that. Let's get that out there. I'll get the shirts made, and Rob, you can persuade other people about.
That's all I need. I don't have enough jobs and wear enough hats up there. That's all I need.
Moving on, Rob, to the co-main event, the flyweight matchup: Jimmy Flick versus Nate Smith. And we were texting, like, this is awesome. This was one of the best fights, I think, this season on the Contender Series. I mean, Nate Smith, very impressive what he's done for being only pro for such a short period of time. Came into tonight at 6-0, now 6-1. Where Jimmy Flick found out about this fight in about a month's notice, had a month to prepare for this, won the LFA flyweight title in just 38 seconds by arm triangle choke, and then just went out there and put on a jiu-jitsu clinic. We're going for submission, like all over the place.
That was so much fun to watch.
Oh, that was a fight for me because every time you put on UFC or MMA to people that aren't big MMA fans, grappling, it's so boring. That fight will change your whole stance on it because the offense from Flick was awesome because it was so innovative and he just kept looking for submissions. But Smith's defense was unbelievable. There was a couple times I thought he was going home with one arm working.
I think I texted you at one point, like, did it just break? Because he had the armbar in so deep, it looked anyway, so deep. And the next thing you know, you just see the arm fold like this. But the way that Smith had flipped his body around to defend it and get himself out was wild. But those scrambles and the transition from Flick going from A to B to C to D to E to F right off the bat. And, you see guys with twice as many fights that would grab onto a guillotine or an arm triangle or something and just squeeze, and it not be there and burn their arms out. Flick just like, nope, I don't have it. Move to the next. It was nuts.
Yeah, Flick is really someone I'm really high on. I'm happy he ended up getting a contract, and there's no way you could deny. Like, this guy's clearly UFC ready. Like, his groundwork is unbelievable. I haven't seen what he can really do on the stand-up as of late, but even when he was throwing some combinations, they didn't look too bad. But his name of his game is he wants a submission. He wants to finish fights on the ground that way, and he looked impressive. Plus, his post-fight, he's one of the most entertaining guys on the microphone as well. After he finished his interview with Floriseco, said to his daughter, "We're going to Build-A-Bear." So, I mean, Build-A-Bear, Build-A-Bear better sponsor Jimmy the Brick Flick for his next fight.
Yeah. Well, that's good tempering of expectations, right? Like, you don't want to be preparing yourself for this thing going, when I win, we're going to go to Disney World. We're going to go this. We're going to go here. And be unable to deliver when you're only making 10 grand on that win. You go to Build-A-Bear, you spend $100, get this awesome thing. The kid's going to be pumped. It's awesome. Everybody wins.
Everyone wins. And you know who's starting to win? The flyweight division. This division, which was nearly eradicated, has become one of the most exciting divisions in all of MMA right now. And Jimmy Flick's now another exciting name added to the 125 pounds of the UFC.
Jimmy Flick versus Malcolm Gordon would be super fun to watch.
I would be down for that because Malcolm's all about the ground game. So I'd like to see what Malcolm can do. And I'd like to see what Jimmy can do defensively because we've only really seen him offensively.
Yeah, well, it was all he was the hammer in that fight, and Smith was the nail from bell to bell. But yeah, just thinking now about like who these guys could fight on their way in. Malcolm fought, I don't know when his fight was, but anyway, he got choked out pretty quick
Up a
in
weight
his
class.
day. Pardon?
Up a weight class too. I think that had to be at
Yeah,
bantamweight.
yeah, it was definitely at Bantamweight. Yeah, yeah. But where was that though? Was that in the? That was
Fight
in.
Island.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it wasn't that long ago.
it was a month ago. It was back in July. So I've seen maybe Malcolm has an opponent. I'm not sure. I've seen him still training, getting ready, but who knows? That'd
Yeah,
be
I
a
saw
great
him in the
fight.
gym today.
Yeah, that'd be a great fight to make, and this division's just continuing the resurgence as well. Nate Smith, he got a developmental deal to come back in November for the Contender Series just on his submission defense alone.
Yeah, gotta love that.
Yeah,
Right?
I
The
mean,
loss, but I really like the kid you're coming back. And I think who else did he do that with? He did that with the main event guy as well. I think so. Dana was certainly in a good mood today.
Dana was definitely in
But
a.
how could you not be in a good mood after that, though?
Oh, that was awesome! Like the consensus all through all of MMA Twitter was this was an amazing fight.
Yeah.
Like and for guys that you don't really know about as well, and nothing crazy being thrown. It's just crazy submissions and like that omoplata, as you said, was unbelievable. Like how Smith's arm didn't snap into 300 pieces.
Yeah, it was gross. And I remember standing up and I was having my hand over my mouth like this because if it's that close, like I don't want to see it actually break.
Neither
That's
do I.
Like just tap, man. Like just tap. It's 5,000, not 50. So just tap and call it a day. But
Yeah.
good on him.
Good on. I mean, like you said, he gets to come back in November for the next season of the Contender Series, where Flick will move on to the big show. And then we went to the main event of Dennis Bazooka versus Melsik Bagdasarian. And Bazooka trains with the Sarah Longo team with Chris Weidman, Ali Aquin, and Aljamain Sterling, who was in his corner as well. And Bagdasarian, looking up this guy is a stand-up machine. He's done boxing, he's done kickboxing, MMA. He has 2 wins in the Lights Out promotion, which is run by former NFL player Sean Merriman, in 7 and 14 seconds. And you can see why he just wanted to come out and blitz Bazooka right out of the gate. The first 90 seconds was just like a video game.
Well, he's got the best striking coach in the history of MMA in his corner.
Yes, he does.
Right? So that's the secret.
Well, and you want to go out there and get the finish, and that's what, as we talked about, that's what Dana loves, and pushing the pace, and that's exactly what Bagdasarian did. And I gave the first round a 10-8 for Bagdasarian. I didn't think Bazooka did too much. He was really just a punching bag for that first round. Like
I love when people call other fighters like punching bags. It's so funny to me.
In that round, he was a punch. He made
for sure. I'm not disagreeing. I don't think it wasn't a 10-8 for me. I've got it written down here as a 10-9 for Bagdasarian, but like I say, it was definitely one-sided for sure. He came out of the gate and it was like, okay, I don't get paid by the minute or the hour. Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's go. And I think both guys showed a lot. Neither guy got a contract, correct?
No. Bagdasarian got one of the developmental deals.
Yeah. So he's coming back. But both guys, I thought, showed a lot of grit, toughness, and skill between the two of them for 5 pro fights apiece. They both looked pretty good, although it was a clear win for Bagdasarian, easy.
I think the biggest moment of the fight for me was when Bazooka went for a submission. He had a nice armbar locked on, and I don't know much about Bagdasarian on his ground game. We know what he can do striking-wise. We saw it in that fight. We know his boxing, kickboxing, and now MMA background, but he survived it, showed a lot of good patience and cool, calm collectiveness to get out of it, and then make it to the final horn where he gets now a developmental deal. And I mean, as you said, some impressive stuff, but I think obviously a lot of guys two guys that have some room to grow as well.
Sure. Yeah, you could definitely sense or see the room for improvement and stuff like that. And I'm not sure of either guy's age and whatnot, but with MMA nowadays, if you got a guy who's 32, 33 years old on his way into the UFC, it's not such a big shock where before they're dumping guys at age 32, right? So you don't have to get in there at 25. It's nice if you can, but if you need another year or two to develop and improve your stuff and then come in as a stud at, in a couple of years, you could be 9-1.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just looking up, Bazooka's only 22 years old. Like, there's tons of room to grow. Bagdasarian's, he's 28, getting towards the late, you're in your late 20s, getting towards your 30s. The time is definitely now for him. So he gets the development. And
but even if he took 2 years out of the UFC or away to get a handful more fights, he's 30.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been fighting for that long. So his his fighting age, or what's that called?
Oh, you're like your ring age or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever that is. He's probably younger than 28 in fight years. That's what it is. Fight years.
Yeah.
So like I say, if he's 30 going into it, it's not a big deal. He's still has a long run. There's a handful of guys in their 40s that are fighting at a high level at this point.
Hey, there's some guys in their 40s that are just starting out their career. I've seen on the amateur scene out in the United States that are just getting things started at that age.
Yeah, that I'm not so sure about what the driving purpose is there. I mean, there's no doubt he's probably got a Corvette that's nice and shiny in the driveway too, and probably has a motorcycle that he rides in the summer as well. Just needs that drive to feel young again and give him a little added boost. Those 40-year-old amateur MMA fighters.
Well, the thing for me with Bagdasarian, the only thing where obviously I think it was right to give him the developmental deal is the cardio wasn't, because he was just blitzing trying to get the finish. Take your time, just get some more cage experience, build up that cardio, because you may get pushed even more. And if you hadn't done as much damage as you did in the first, you could have been finished yourself.
Well, you and I were joking, like, does Bazooka fella, does he owe him money, or did he grab his girlfriend's ass? Like, what's going on behind the scenes that's got this guy wanting to murder him in the cage and not take his time with it?
Yeah, exactly. Wanted the big quick finish, but didn't get it, but gets a developmental contract going the distance.
Did you have it 30-27 or 29-28?
I had it 29-27 because I gave it the
first
round 10-8. I had it 29-27 for
Did you give the second round to
I gave the second one to Bazooka
because
I thought Bagdasarian was done. Like, he looked exhausted. I thought he was going to be out on his feet. It was a much better round, a clear round there for Bazooka. And then when they were pushing for Bazooka to, like, come on, you got to let it go. You got to empty the tank in the final minute. He was kind of just stagnant. And he let Bagdasarian get back into the fight, which I know Dana definitely hates that type of stuff.
Well, I think, too, it's tough to put yourself in that position, like taking the amount of damage that he took in the first round and then completely turning that around and turning that into offense for the second round. Your tank for the third round is going to be pretty low as it is. So your adrenaline dump, long gone, and the gas tank is running on fumes.
Yeah, so that was this week of the Contenders series as week 5 came to a close, where 2 actual contracts were given out and 3 developmental deals, I believe.
Knight, Lawrence, and Flick, 3 contracts.
Okay, so I got mistaken. That Lawrence got an actual contract, not a development.
Yeah, he got an actual deal. And Bagdasarian got invited back, and Smith got invited back for November. In a losing effort, Smith got invited back.
But what's that? It's 3 actual and 3 developmental deals then.
Oh, right, because he gave Lutz an opportunity. Yeah. I don't think they're developmental deals. I think they're just an invitation
just to come back. Yeah. Just to
come back. I say, if I'm those guys, you always take that for starters. But again, who knows when you can fight again, given the world we're living in right now. And I know they're getting paid either 5-5 or 6-6. Like, it's decent money for a regional. It's a high level regional fight. So take the 5-10 grand and do it again.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm excited that they're bringing the Contender Series back in November. So, like, I know they were talking about bringing the Ultimate Fighter back. Does this now, like, kibosh the Ultimate Fighter coming back? Because how are you going to film that?
Well, that's the Ultimate Fighter
Yeah,
as far,
yeah.
yeah, because you're all in the same house and all
Build
that
the same
stuff.
house and the
Yeah.
production crew as well. Like that's 40
Mhm.
people plus in one house.
Yeah, it's probably, well, who knows? I don't know. They what they've got, but Dana seemed pretty adamant. I think he was talking to that clown from Barstool. What's his name?
Robbie Fox.
Yeah, I don't have any time for that guy. Um, I don't know how you feel about him, but I'm not a fan of his. But anyway, I believe I watched an interview with those two, and I think he said that yeah, it's coming back for sure. We're doing it. Boom, and that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, when Robbie got the tour of the Apex. I mean,
Yeah.
Robbie gets the exclusives. I know a lot of people don't care for him, but he does get the one-on-ones with Dana that so many people will just die for in the MMA industry.
Oh, sure, and I'm sure that's got less to do with him and more to do with his outlet, but um, that's what there's certain people that don't like the schmo. I think the schmo is funny. His shtick is humorous to me. Some people think he's a complete donkey. You know what I mean? But that's his thing, and Robbie's got his thing, and it's not for me. And I think what really did it for me was the Conor McGregor,
Mm.
the video of himself watching the McGregor fight and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
for me.
when
Like I
you're
got
on press row, right, you're not allowed to root for anyone. You're supposed to be right down the
well,
middle.
part of that for sure, but just the way that I've personally have never watched a fight where I've reacted like that to it. Um, it just made me want to hit him.
Well, Rob, you don't have to go hitting him. He's far away, and the hitting is done for week 5 of the Contenders series. All in all, a good night of fights, and we'll be back. Hope maybe we'll be back on Tuesday. I mean, this is the thing we like to text about and watch because I mean, you're in the business of making fights for these prospects out on the regional scenes to get to this next level. So, I mean, this got to be really fun for you watching the Contender series.
But it's super fun, and seeing guys like last year with Aaron Jeffrey going, and there was a couple other Teddy Ash went out last year too. Seeing guys from Canada getting an opportunity, and then this year seeing TJ and Romero going out there. TJ getting a contract, that was exciting. But also seeing guys like what's his name, Isaac, doctor. Remember him for Medic? Is it Isaac Mack? No. Anyways, the kid he's training in Florida right now, and week 1 I think it was. But anyways, I was
Uros Medic.
Euros Medic. That's right. Yeah. So I was working on a fight with him and one of the 55ers from around here for our August show. That obviously didn't happen because of COVID, but that's an example too where you talk about or talk to these guys or their teams and try to set fights up to have them on your shows, and then they get an opportunity on the big stage and they knock it out of the park. So it's great to see the guys that we've had on the show go on and do well, but it's also nice to see guys that we almost had it, or what would have happened if Lutz fought Asenza, for example, or Medic fought Special. William Knight, I remember talking to Tyson about William Knight and Aaron Jeffrey last year. Like these are all stuff that's so close to happening, and it would have been really cool to get that fight to happen in the BTC cage. But it's neat to see those guys on the shows like Dana White's Contender Series and be successful.
Well, we have one. The next Canadian will be KB Buller, September 22nd, fighting
Right.
on the.
He's really good.
Yeah,
He's really good, I think, and especially at 85, a division that needs a shot in the arm. It's too bad that we didn't get to see him and Jared Ravel. I think that would have been a good fight for out west, but I know that like Unified's got their hooks in KB pretty deep, and BFL with Jared. So I don't know that there's no chance that fight would have ever happened, but that would have been a good fight to see on the regional scene. But yeah, KB. Any other Canadians coming up that you're aware of? Oh, there's that kid from Winnipeg, another 85er.
Yeah, him, and there is a female that is fighting on the final.
Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee, something or other.
Yeah, she's fighting Jamie Lee Orth Wessels.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's fighting on there.
Another kid Achilles from BFL as well.
Yeah. I know
Go ahead.
I know that there is another guy from out west fighting. I just can't remember what week because they've had to
It's the
shuffle a lot
last
of
week.
fights around.
It's the last week. It's in October, I think.
Oh, the Iron Pole.
Marius Zaromskis. No, not Zaromskis. You remember Marius Zaromskis?
Saw him fighting Bellator at Casino Rama.
Yeah. I wouldn't have known you there then, but I was at the same show. Good times back in the day. What's it? The Iron Pole Marius or something or other, but he's from Winnipeg, coming from Brad Katona's old gym in Winnipeg. So that, it's good to see the guys getting an opportunity, especially in Winnipeg, because they haven't seen fights in a few years.
That too, but it's like this is the season where they've really tried to expand the Canadian side of things. We only had the two or three Canadians last year. We had Aaron, Dustin Joinson, and Teddy Ash. Yeah. So the three, and they've expanded it by double that for this season.
Yeah, and I think they would have liked to have done more, but they can't. Like the visa thing's not easy with the COVID stuff and all that jazz right now. So they've definitely done a lot of Canadians this year. There was talk about doing a Canadian Contender Series or something like that, which would have been cool. I don't know that there's enough.
They have the Brazilian one, and obviously there's a much more of a bigger ocean of Brazilian fighters to put on that type of thing than Canada. But you could do just maybe like another North American one. But then I guess why would you when you just have the Contender Series as it is?
Sure. Yeah, it's either way. It's good. I think the UFC is lacking in Canadian representation, and not to take shots at our national brethren, but I don't know that we're all that well represented. I think there's definitely lots of talented guys and gals that are on the cusp that will put on for Canada and have some longevity. So I'm excited for that to happen, but nobody can go anywhere if they can't fight. So we're sort of stuck twiddling our thumbs at this point, or so we think.
Well, Rob, it was real fun to break this down. I mean, we did more than that. I mean, we got you a mayor campaign potentially going. You broke some news about Quebec. I mean, this was way more than just talking about 5 fights on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, well, that's like I said. And I apologize for that. I'll take some of that blame because I'll take you down this road. I'll take you down that road. I'm looking at the time. It's 11:30. Going, oh, I didn't expect that we'd be up, this late, still talking about a 2-hour MMA show.
Well, in your defense, the fights did go a lot longer than they had the previous week. We've had 2 fights go to the first fight, and the last fight went to a decision as well. So when it was like 10:30, I planned to start this by 10:30.
Oh, see, I thought you were like, I thought you were saying that we'll be cutting it close. No, well, I don't know how I thought what you were talking about, but anyways, it doesn't matter. We are, we got her done.
We got her done.
UFC pacing is still pitiful, even at the Contender Series level. But again, for me, I just want to see the fights and move on. Like, I don't need to see the backstories and all that stuff. I like it to a degree, but I'm not going to sit there and watch it and all that stuff. But I can see the appeal. Last year when we were there, remember Impa? He fought a couple weeks ago or whatever. He was on the card that we were at, and the kid from Boston or something. Anyways, he had a tough go. He had
Pete.
some
Slippery
Pete.
Pete.
Slippery Pete, yes. So we sat like right beside his family, and they had this big, huge story about his background and yada yada. And I look over, and my wife's crying, like watching this thing, and I go, "Fuck, that's why they do it, man."
Yep.
She goes, "But I really hope he wins now." And so she was like rooting for the guy, like she hook, line, and sinker. The marketing worked, hook, line, and sinker. It doesn't. I don't care about that stuff. I'm happy for him that he's turned it around, all that stuff, whatever. I just want to see the fight and on to the next. Boom, bang him out.
Well, Rob, that's why they do it, and that's why I brought you on, because you bring the entertainment, you break down the fight so well, and you know a lot about the background of these guys. And Rob, hopefully next Tuesday we can be back here, not at the
I'm
same
down,
time.
man. I'm
And
down. Yeah, we'll figure things out. It's 11:30, but I'm not doing anything else on a Tuesday night. Let's do it,
who
man.
who is? I mean, it's not a school night for us, right? I mean,
No,
so I mean, school's
well,
around the corner, but not for us. So
that's right.
but Rob, thanks for this. It was fun, and we'll chat with you again next Tuesday for Week 6 of the Contender Series.
Sounds awesome, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Talk to you.